Hi, it's Bren. We're doing an episode of Things by Bren. Today, I have a guy that's in Australia. His name is Dean King. He has been out from behind the bars for 30 years. It's a long time. And he was in for 14. So he really knows what he's talking about. So he's written a book. He's been financially successful. He's done all kinds of things with his life to show that change is possible. Dean, nice to have you. Would you tell us a little bit about your background, how you were raised, and how you ended up going to prison?
Thanks, Brenda. Great to meet you and great to be in conversation with yourself. I come from a place in Australia in Sydney. It's in New South Wales. It's called an area called Balmain. A working class suburb, very hard in its day, as far as the people that lived in the area. It was in the inner city suburbs of Sydney, and my father was a wharfie,
What's
and
that?
well, that's a guy that works on the waterfront.
Okay.
And they breed them tough on the waterfront down here in Australia. And my mother was brought up also in an area called Pyrmont. That's also in the inner city suburbs of Sydney. Another waterside area. Lots of ships docked there from all over the world. A lot of Americans had come there and resided, and Scottish and Irish, and yeah, there was a pub on every corner there, and you didn't have to go to Mandalay Bay to watch the fights. There was always a fight on every corner at every night on every night, and so yeah, I was brought up really hard and really tough. I had three siblings. Well, actually four. One got adopted out when I was a child, and yeah, it was a hard family, a tough family, but I was the last of four children, so I kind of assumed that my parents were kind of at the end of parenting when I come along. So I was kind of left, Brenda, to my own devices.
Wow.
As a child. And yeah, I kind of seeked a lot of attention because I was left to my own devices, and any attention's good attention, right?
Right. So you think at the time.
Yeah, yeah. So there wasn't much of it in my in my family unit, and so yeah, I wanted to impress my parents. I wanted to be accepted more. I was kind of left out, as I said, to my own devices a lot. So I kind of seek that, and I like that kind of attention. I can remember as a child, my father, he didn't like the local paper boy, and he made it very clear that he didn't like the local paper boy. And when he was going past one day, he said, here comes that paper boy.
I
And
saw some of that in your book. Yeah.
yeah, and but being the child that wanted that attention, I took stock of that, and I went out and I dealt with that accordingly to please my father, and I bit his ear off, and
Oh, man.
yeah, and I got praise for that, and I got acknowledgement for that, and my father gave me 20 cents for doing that, and yeah, so that when I got praised for that kind of aggression and violence and acting that way, I kind of thought,
Continued it.
yeah, I thought that was the way, that was the way. I got that identification and that acknowledgement. So yeah, I just kept that up.
Well, do you feel that that contributed to just the way you were raised, and then you had some violence, you were listening to your dad? Did that put you on your path to incarceration?
I think it did, because all I ever wanted, Brenda, was to be loved. Um, and like when my parents, well, my father, but more so, my mother was very stone cold. When my father gave me that form of attention, as I said, I continued down that track. But unfortunately, when I went out into the big wide world and I started behaving that way, uh, society took stock of me, and I realised as years rolled on that there was, there was accountability, and there was consequences for this crazy outlandish behaviour, and
Right.
yeah, I wore the brunt of that, and
Uh,
and and I deserved it too.
well, most people, when they've come to terms with what they've done, will tell you that they deserve the consequences that they got. How old were you when you were first incarcerated?
First time I was incarcerated, I was 12. I went to an institution in the west of Sydney called Darrick. It was an area called Windsor, and I got a sentence called a general sentence, and that was described as it would go to 3 years, but it was 4.5 months to 3 years, and most kids only did 4.5 months of that sentence. And yeah, I only did 4.5 months, and then I was released, and I went there for stealing push bikes.
Oh, okay. I'm assuming a push bike is just a bicycle, what we would call it here in America.
Right.
Yes. Okay. And you guys are probably wondering, why is she interviewing somebody from another country? I've done a few of them because, incarceration is incarceration. People are people. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what color you are. Incarceration, being locked up is being locked up. And changing your life is also who a person is and what they can do if they put their mindset. Doesn't matter where they live. So you're 12 years old, you are in like a juvenile detention type thing. You get out in 4.5 months. Are you released back to your family and then back to school, back to normal life? What happens?
Yeah, I got released back to my family, and the the normality that I was used to, I went straight back into that. Like my parents were drinkers, my
Mm-hmm.
mother was always at work, the siblings had pretty much gone.
Right.
So it was a very lonely environment that I went back to. So I was back on the streets, I was running around with the street kids and the homeless people. And, that's where I got excitement, and that's where I enjoyed doing crazy things. And I got a laugh, and we took drugs, and
Mm.
yeah, it was all crazy, and it was all kind of fun.
So
And
how old were you the next time you went in?
well, the next incarceration was for murder.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was 14, and we used to steal marijuana plants out the back of people's backyards.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to this house one night to steal marijuana, and unfortunately, the guy that owned the premises, he come out, and he was wielding a baseball bat and an iron bar. And my co-accused, the guy I was with in the backyard, he was cutting the plants, and we needed a knife because the plants were so big. And
Right.
I run to jump the fence to get out of there. I was so young. My co-accused was 21, and the guy got me on top of the fence, and he hit me over the back with the iron bar. and I fell into a garden bed and I was knocked out. And I awoke a few minutes later to observe these two fighting each other in the backyard, and it was a very ferocious fight. There was a fight to the death, and my co-accused, the guy I was with, he lived to tell the tale from that fight, and stabbed him a lot, and
Wow.
he
So you
died.
got in trouble for that too because you were there.
Well, yeah, what I find interesting is what I got found guilty of, and that got downgraded to manslaughter. I got found guilty of saying to the police when they asked me, did my co-accused say anything prior to going to the premises? And he said, when he got the knife, he said, if anyone, comes out, I'm going to kill him. And he put the knife up in front of himself. And I went, oh, I'm not going, and then he laughed at me. He said, Dean, it's only to cut the plants. I'm not going to kill anybody.
Oh, wow.
So it was proven on that basis that they proved that he was guilty for the murder, which I don't think he should have been found guilty. I think it was more self-defense because our motive was not to hurt anybody.
Right.
But
Things happen.
things happen, exactly, Brenda, and they found me guilty of manslaughter based on they come to the conclusion that I knew his intent, that he said he was going to kill somebody. But I'd heard every day of my life people talking about, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to kill this person, I'm
Some
going to
mean it
kill
and
this
the
person.
majority of people don't mean that.
Exactly.
Right.
So I got 5 years for that, and I ended up in a men's prison.
And
I
how
was
old were you again?
14.
Oh, so you basically they tried you as an adult and treated
Well,
you as an adult.
Well, that's the law here in Australia. That was the law back in the late 70s, early 80s. If you're charged with an indictable offence, then you are treated as an adult, as you just explained. And there's a certain section under the Youth and Community Services Act for juveniles where they then make an application to take you back over into the juvenile system. So I spent a couple of months in a men's prison at that age. I was on protection. So yeah,
Were you scared?
No.
No?
No, I wasn't.
I guess you were with the same type of people you were running with.
You got it. You got it. Yeah, I was.
So you did 5 years, you get out, you're now 19.
No, I got a recommendation for parole after 2 years.
Okay.
So I get out just before I'm 18.
All right.
17. I did a bit over 2 years for it. And I pretty much took off where I started before that happened. I had a lot to catch up on, and
So you didn't learn your lesson.
No, I didn't learn my lesson. I did learn that I didn't want to smoke marijuana anymore, but I did go back to that. But as far as learning the lessons are concerned,
Oh, it looks like your internet cut off there for a minute. There we go. There, you're back now.
Yeah. Did you hear what I just said about?
No,
Okay. Yeah, it was like I didn't learn my lesson because to me it was other people's fault. It was other people's circumstances they placed upon me as the reason why I was what I was. It was all other people.
So you were blame shifting, putting the blame on somebody else, not taking
all the
responsibility.
time.
Yeah.
All the time. I didn't know any better. That was in my environment. That was in my home. That was everywhere, and I see it everywhere in society today. To tell you the truth.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. So now you're
Mhm.
back on the streets.
Yeah.
Then what happens? You did
Uh,
14 years, you go back in again.
yeah. I start using heroin.
Oh, that's a bad one.
Um, yeah.
Should have stuck to the
Yeah.
marijuana.
Well, you're right. They're probably. I think they're probably bad as each other as far as escaping yourself. But
Yeah.
yeah, the narcotics are really strong, and that they take you to a whole new level. But I liked it. I enjoyed getting high. I enjoyed being on the nod. I enjoyed it. It suited me to use heroin.
Hmm.
It gave me a purpose. I had something to do. I had to steal money. I had an objective each day. Uh, it was kind of like I created a life. I had a
Wow.
purpose while I was using heroin.
Or so you thought.
Um,
Hmm.
well, yeah, but this might sound crazy, but that was real. It
Oh,
was what it
yeah,
was at that point in stage.
absolutely. It's what your life was at that time.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, so I was crazy. I was a crazy thief. I was a sneak thief. I used to go into offices and jump into people's homes when they were there and steal stuff. And I'd do robberies with weapons. And yeah, I was crazy. I had
You
no
had no
fear,
fear.
none whatsoever. I
Hmm.
was absolutely fearless. I
Wow.
didn't care. I didn't care about the consequences. Yeah, the only thing I cared about is getting that money and feeling that niceness and feeling
Right.
that peace and that comfort.
So how long were you out doing that before you went back in?
Well, I ended up in another state. I ended up going to Victoria with a group of friends, and I went down there and I got into a high pursuit car chase. We were stealing and doing robberies, and I got arrested. Well, we all got arrested, and I got sentenced to prison down there. I wasn't even 18 down there.
Wow. So
I
you
was
weren't out very
just
long at
nearly.
all.
No, and I was just turning 18, and I ended up in a prison called Pentridge Prison, and I did about a year and a half there, and then I before that I got arrested in Sydney for robberies, and I was out on bail. So pretty much after I got out for that murder charge / manslaughter, within 3 or 4 months, I was
Back into
arrested
trouble.
again. Yeah,
Hmm.
straight up, and then off to Melbourne. So I failed to appear on those charges in New South Wales,
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah, that'll get you in trouble.
and yeah, well, yeah, and the police, the police found out that I was incarcerated in Victoria, and they were going to seek my extradition
Hmm.
at the end of that sentence in Victoria. But as luck would have it, they didn't get me. They let me out by mistake in Victoria. So
Now,
I
how in the
walked out.
world did they do that?
Oh my God! Oh, God was on my side, Brenda. Um, there was a program down there because the prisons were so full. It was called a leave of absence program. And you could apply for this program when you had 6 months to go because of how full these prisons were. And that meant that they let you out of prison, and you had to go and report to like a parole officer for
Mhm.
6 months, as long as you had a residential address in Victoria, which I got from one of the prisoners when I applied for it.
Right.
They okayed my release, and
Oh,
they missed the extradition papers on the file for some reason. I didn't think I was going to get out. I thought it was a big joke. When I applied for it, and the lady come down and she come to the yard with a prison officer, and she said, "You'll be released tomorrow."
oh,
I
wow.
thought, yeah, I thought in my heart, I thought that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to find out any minute now.
Yeah. And I'm going to get to that front gate, or before that front gate, then the New South Wales police are going to be there. But I went through the process of discharge, and I got to that front gate, and when he opened it, there was no one there, and I
Wow.
just run. I ran,
So
and
now you're back on the streets.
yeah, I run
And
to a
then what
bus stop.
happened? You evidently went back again.
Yeah, well, I run to a bus stop, and I caught a tram, and I caught the tram to a place called Spencer Street in Victoria, which is like a big train station where all trains go everywhere and all over the
Mhm.
state and to the suburbs. And
Sounds like a transfer station.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I rang my father from there, who was in Sydney, and I said, "Dad, they've let me out." He said, what do you mean they've let you out? I said, "I'm free." He said, "Oh, the stupid bastards, Dean." And I said, "Dad, what do you think I should do?" He said, "Where are you?" I said, I'm at a train station called Spencer Street." He said, "Get on a train, get the hell out of there, and hitchhike back to New South Wales. At least if you get pinched down here in this state, we can at least visit you." I said, "I'm
Right.
on my way."
Okay. So you're
So,
out, you take a train, you're hitchhiking, you're doing whatever you got to do to get back to where you want to be. And then what happens?
yeah. Well, I get back to New South Wales, and I continue back on the heroin, back to the same areas. See, I always went back to what I was familiar with. Yeah,
Right.
you
Well, that's
know,
what we're just creatures of habit. That's what we do.
that's exactly what happened. I knew I didn't know any better, so I just went back to what I was familiar with, the same areas, the same people. And yeah, they were all crazy people, you know. They were doing the same shit as me, and I continued doing that. And I went back to court for those charges. I got arrested on other matters, and I went back to court on those charges, and I got 2.5 years with a 12 months recommendation. And I went back to Long Bay Jail as an adult, and that's the prison I was in as a child. And I went up to a farm in the west of Sydney called Emu Plains, and I did about 18 months of that sentence, and then I got out, and I picked up again where I left off. I just kept continuing. Um, Back in more trouble. Went back to Melbourne, more trouble. And then I was wanted by the police everywhere, and in 3 different states by this time.
Wow.
Oh, sorry, 2 different states. And then I thought, well, we'll give Brisbane a run. We'll try a different state. So I went north, and I caught a bus to Brisbane, and had a raging heroin habit,
Mm.
and I was sick on the bus all the way to Brisbane, which was about a 20-hour bus ride. And I was spewing on the bus, and I got to Brisbane on a Sunday morning, and I went to a church, And I said to the father who had just finished the service, I said, Father, I need somewhere to stay. Is there any salvos, St. Vincent's de Paul's, when I say
Hmm.
salvos, or Salvation Army places around here,
Right.
Father? And he said, my son, let me go and make a couple of phone calls and see if I can get you some accommodation. And he did. And when I landed there was two guys sitting out the front that I knew from Sydney that were heroin addicts. And
Oh,
I hooked
brother.
on, right, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I hooked up with them, and the madness just kept going.
What age were you when you were finally out for good?
Well, finally out for good, I was 27,
Hmm.
and
Were
that
you drug
was
free at that time?
yeah, that was after rehab. That was my
Hmm.
last stint in any institution, and I landed in that rehab in 1989. I just finished 3 years in a maximum security prison here in Queensland called Boggo Road. And during the 80s, I was there for a long time. And I was in riots there and hunger strikes. And, I would mix with the best of them. And,
Right.
I
You
would
just knew
step
where to
up.
go.
Yeah, well, that those guys were my type of people.
Right.
I liked the people that were crazy. I liked to run with the ones that were
Because you were
rebellious.
one of them. Yeah.
No,
Mhm.
what makes you say that, Brenda?
I peeked into your book last night. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
So what
you
changed you? What made
okay.
you decide that you needed to change, that you needed to stop using drugs, that you needed to refocus your life?
Well, what changed me was I I I just finished 3 years in this prison, Bogger Road, and I was going to go back onto remand because I had 120 charges still hanging over my head.
Woo.
That the prosecution, we call down here in Australia the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions. That's the definition of that. They were having problems in respect to if these charges should be heard in the Supreme Court or the District Court. So there was a jurisdiction problem with these charges, and this sentence of over 3 years elapsed and finished, and I was going to go back on the remand, and I didn't want to go back on remand, and I went up to a so-called, we call them bail birds down here, but they're jail lawyers, and
Right.
I went up to one of these bail birds, the jail lawyers, and I said to this guy, can you do a bail application for me in the Supreme Court so I can get out? And he said, I'm going to have a look at your criminal record, Dean. So I took my criminal record up to him the next day, and he looked at it. And that afternoon, he called me back to the fence and he asked me, did I have any money? And I said, I got about 20 cents in my prison property account. And he said, well, you're going to need a lot more than that because look how many times you failed to appear on this record. There's not a court in this land that's going to give you bail, Dean, on your own
Right.
undertaking. I said, well, get back to work and keep trying. I'm sure you can find an angle. He said, you're making it hard for me, Dean. I said, that's your job. Get
Did
to
he do
work.
it?
Well, he called me back to the fence the next day. He said, I've got bail for a few people to go to this new rehabilitation centre on the outskirts of Brisbane, and it's called Logan House. And I went,
Oh.
no, don't swear at me. I'm not going to any rehabilitation centre, man. There's nothing wrong with me, mate. I'm fine. I'm good as gold. This is not going to happen. So I walked away and I went back to the prison yard, and my friends, we got a heap of marijuana in on a visit, and they were all pulling bongs in the yard. And they said, "Here, Bluey, have a bong." And I started having a bong. And I looked around the jail and I thought, I spent nearly 3 years in here. I thought, if I go to that rehab, I got no walls there, I can escape. And I was thinking, I'll go there, there'll be girls there. I heard there's a pool there too. The guy said there's a pool there. So I'm thinking, because I train every day, sitting back on a banana chair with oil on
Right.
me, the girls coming over and looking at, talking to them. And,
Thinking you're going to have a life in rehab.
I'm thinking of pina coladas. And
In rehab. Yep.
so, oh my God, that was a shock to the system when I finally got there. And yeah, but I went to court and I got bail there. The judge said, "Well, nothing else has worked for you, son, has it?" He said, "You're very close to being a habitual prisoner." And what that means is that
You're a
it's a
career
sentence.
criminal.
Yeah, but it's a sentence it's under Her Majesty's pleasure, the Queen, right? And it's
Ah,
called the key. And when you get handed this sentence, there's no time period on it. You get released when the Queen allows you to be released.
that's not
So it's
good.
indefinite. And I was only 26, 27 when I nearly got this sentence. So I hit this rehab, and yeah, that was an extremely interesting arrival, and I hated it. I had plans of running away, and just the feeling of it, considering that I hated people that told on people, and what I used to call them dogs, and I hated people that I used to think that were weak, not like me, who did the right thing and listened to people. And yeah, it was terrible how I felt.
Which is miserable.
It was miserable, but yeah, this confrontation, it was a therapeutic community, and it was based on the residents confronting each other on their attitude. I'll tell you what it's similar like over in your way in the States. And I've been to this rehab. There's a program in America called Delancey Street.
Oh, okay.
And their headquarters is in San Francisco. I strongly recommend anybody that's seeking any kind of rehabilitation to look at this
Go there.
program.
Okay.
It's a fantastic program.
Delancey Street.
Delancey Street, that's correct. And it is so successful that they companies all over the world send their executives there to try and work out why something that is so it appears so unmanageable, because it's run by ex-convicts and drug addicts, how it can
Because
be
they know what it's like. They've been there.
That's right, but within the program, there's a lot of industries. They've created a tree chopping industry. There's mechanic industries. There's a trucking company. There's panel beating shops. There's a limousine service.
Wow.
And they're all self-sufficient. And I went there back in 90, I think it was 96. And I was told about the program by a prison psychologist here in Australia. And there's also cinemas and retail shopping precedents. And I had their phone number, and I gave them a call. And the person that answered the phone, they said, how may I direct your call? Do you want cinema? Do you want retail? Do you want manufacturing? I said, I just want to speak to somebody about your institute training course you got there that you have each year. He said, oh, no problem, sir. Anyway, I was talking to this guy. I forget his name. He was a Black American guy, beautiful guy. I met him. Uh, I went skiing in Canada, and I went up to Whistler. And on the way back, I flew into San Fran. And on the way back, this guy picked me up from my hotel, and I went there for 2 weeks, and I did an institute training course there.
Oh, wow.
And it's a phenomenal program what these people have done. And the lady who created it, her name is Mimi Silbert, and she's very well known in America. And if you don't know of her, I strongly recommend that you check her out. She incepted the program with another guy who was an ex-alcoholic, and he went back to the booze, and she kept going with the program, and they've got centers right out throughout the East Coast
Oh, that's wonderful.
of your country. So yeah, I highly recommend that.
Okay.
So back to the rehab here in Australia. It was all about confrontation and being accountable and having to listen to people talk about attitudes and behaviors they see in you, and you
Completely
have
different.
you have to accept this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you weren't allowed to respond to it. The only thing you could respond to was saying how you felt. Like if somebody confronted you on being angry or intimidating, you're allowed to say, well, I felt angry when that person said that to me, or I felt this, or I felt annoyed, or I felt I wanted to hurt that person, or, you could only talk about how you felt. So after 3 months of this confrontation, I break down and I cry. And I cried for 4 hours, and I couldn't stop crying. And it just built up for 3 to 4 months, all this pressure in my system, and having to listen to all this stuff. And my behavior was crazy in this environment, because how the person I used to be, and I had all these consequences all the time for my behavior. And I lost it. And it was a
Right.
massive outburst. I started punching big oak trees and throwing shovels into paddocks, and we were working on this ditch when I got this little message from the staff about, where do I get off intimidating other people, and
Right.
and it was only a little thing, but it was like, the cherry on the cake. I'd had enough.
Right.
But being broken emotionally, I cried for hours and hours and hours, and I couldn't stop crying. And I was hyperventilating with no tears coming out. And I was comforted by a staff member, and I was taken to my villa, and they were beautifully caring people, And he's patting, he's going, "It's okay, Dean, it's okay." And I went to sleep, and I remember I woke up the next day, and I got up, and I just felt this. I just felt not
Relieved?
self-conscious.
Wow.
Like
Something happened.
it was like somebody took a wet coat off me.
Wow. Wow, that's big. That's big.
And I'm going, and I feel light on my feet. And I said to a resident, I said, I feel really at peace. He said, welcome to vulnerability, Dean.
So change started happening.
And I said to him, if this is vulnerability, I'm never leaving it.
Wow. That's good.
I love
That's
it.
good. Mm-hmm.
It was.
You've never had it before.
and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be the angry person. I didn't want to be mean. I all that it was still there,
Right.
but I had a different point of reference now, Brenda.
Which is huge, huge. So you go to rehab, you've had this awakening that you don't want to be who you were.
Yeah,
What did you do after that?
I had to go back to court
What did they
for
do
all
to
those.
you?
Gave me another 3 years.
Oh, wow. So how did you go back change those 3 years with a different outlook?
Completely changed. Completely.
Mhm. So when you came out that last time, it was for real.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I went back, I'd changed, but everybody else hadn't.
Oh no, they're still the same, right? Yeah. That had to be hard too.
It was, but it was very enlightening.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because you got to see who you were through somebody else. Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
and I was never ever in my days of living in those environments offered so much heroin in my life,
Right.
because I was saying no to it.
Right. Then people want to say, let's get him back in here. Let's get him hooked again. Yeah. I can't believe they put you through rehab and then put you back in prison for crimes that because you hadn't committed new crimes. These were still old crimes.
Very old.
Yeah. Well, it's just the way any government really works. So let's fast forward. You're out. When did you write your book while you were incarcerated or did you do it afterwards?
No, I didn't write my book till 16 years later.
Okay.
I wrote my book. I started writing the book in 2006.
Okay.
But when I went back to prison, I, um, I was trying to help all these people that I had experienced a lot of crazy things with, and they were
Right.
most of them were heroin addicts and crazy people. So I'm trying to get them to drug groups and trying to tell them that they need to change their life
They're not
and
going to
want
listen to you.
change.
Hmm.
Well, they were saying things to me like, are you sick? You're sick, Dean. And they were putting their hands on my forehead and they were saying, you got a fever, Bluey,
Hmm.
look, you're sick, mate. You're okay. They were saying, Dean, you don't need a bail application anymore. You're not going up for parole. You don't have to pretend anymore, Dean.
Right.
And I'm saying, I'm not pretending.
They didn't believe you.
I'm done. I'm
Hmm.
done. I'm done. I'm finished. I've had it. And I'm saying, if you guys don't get the accountability in your life, you're going to die here.
Right. And that's very true because drugs will do that to you. It keeps you if you're not strong enough. Absolutely. And then you put the bad behavior with it. It's just a dangerous combination. Yes.
And these guys were really willing guys, They
Hmm.
were out there. They were all armed robbers and mad guys doing 20, 30 years and,
Mm.
but I cared for them.
Well,
But
sure.
but
You
I,
spend
I
time
was
with them.
and the thing is, Brenda, I was allowed to talk to them like that
Well, that's it.
because
You had earned some respect from
a
being in
lot of
there with
respect,
them. Right. Yeah. Prison's
heaps of
got its
respect.
own sense of rules. And I'm not talking about rules of the actual prison. I'm talking about the unspoken rules between inmates, the people who live there. There is a code of conduct that you either live by or you die by.
You got it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same in any country, to be honest with you. So you get out. What was your first job?
Well, I go back to that rehab and I decided to complete something that I needed to complete. So before I got a job, I realised that if I'm going to change my life, I've got to
Good for
follow things
you.
through.
Yeah.
So firstly, I go back to that rehab and I graduate from that rehab. on
Good.
my own accord.
Mm-hmm. Not court
Um,
ordered, not because you were in
no,
custody, but on your own. That makes a big difference.
yeah. And before I got there, I was telling them in prison, I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. And they go, oh, come on, Dean.
No,
Come
they
on.
expected you to be spending the rest of your life in there with them.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Dean. They used to call me the compound counselor.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Come on, Dean. Or Bluey, the nickname was. Come on,
Yeah.
Blue. Come on, Bluey. You're
Now, why
going a
was that
little
your
bit.
nickname?
Yeah, Bluey, they called me.
But why?
'Cause-
Why was it?
well, this might sound a little bit bizarre to yourself, Brenda, or people, but in Australia, guys with red hair, they call blue.
Okay, we don't do that here.
No, well, don't ask me why, but they call us Bluey. So that was my nickname, Bluey. So I tell them that I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. Now, from this openness that I discovered from my vulnerability and talking about my feelings and talking about all my self problems and how self-conscious I was, and I hated myself, Brenda.
I bet.
I hated myself. I hated the way I looked. I used to think I was an alien. Yeah, seriously. I used to think walking down the street that everybody was looking at me going, oh, he's ugly, he's ugly, he's ugly. And my father used to call me ugly as a kid. So I used to think I was really ugly and I was really self-conscious and couldn't look at people. And,
Right.
I always used to go really red, felt really inadequate within my soul. Worried what people thought of me all the time,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't comfortable within my soul. I was always worried about people and what they
Right.
thought of me and stuff like that. So, so when I tell these, so that's the stuff that I was dealing with. Okay, my personal stuff. So when I realised that I liked the feeling of vulnerability and I was going to stay there, I started talking about all this stuff because it was my stuff.
Right.
I was beyond blaming people. I learnt in the rehab that blaming people doesn't fix you.
No, it doesn't. You have to take responsibility for your own actions. Yes.
Yeah, and
I
and
learned that
and
the hard way
and
too. Mm-hmm.
and and for me, my internal dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
my feelings, my thoughts,
Right.
everything. So, you know, I'm getting through this stuff. Mate, I've still got a lot of stuff to talk, but I'm talking about it every day. I'm
Right.
going to see counsellors in there. I'm going to see psychologists. I'm going to see prison chaplains. I'm talking to anybody that wants a yarn
Right.
about my emotions and how hard I'm doing it and how intimidating I'm finding the environment and how threatening it is. Blah, I'm reaching out to everybody. And because I'm assuming this, Brenda, because I started releasing all this stuff, all this other stuff started coming to me. I'm going to be a millionaire. Now, how am I going to do that? I didn't have a clue how I was going to do that, but stuff was coming to me. When I started clearing all this stuff, other stuff started coming in.
Right. You're making room for
And
new.
yeah, and I could distinguish bad thoughts because they were still attacking me.
Right.
Oh, you ugly bastard. Oh, you're this, you're not going to be anything. And I'd be saying, you watch me. I'll show you. I'll show you. I will. So I'm telling them I'm going to be a millionaire. And there's a guy down here named Terry Packer. And he's very well known and he's a famous business person down here. And I used to compare myself to him, to these prisoners. What's the difference between me and Terry Packer? If I cut him with a knife and you cut
He's gonna
me,
bleed. Right.
we're going to both bleed.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference between me and him is that he's got more information than I have at this point in stage. And this was like 1990. So I go back to rehab. I graduate from rehab. I get a couple of jobs here and there, and I land in a job down here on the Gold Coast in a telemarketing in a boiler room.
Wow. That's a
Yeah,
nice environment.
yeah, well, something like the Wolf of Wall Street, you know.
Yeah.
And so I land in this environment, and you know, none of these guys had been to university, or they had no academic skills, or they were all just, some were ex-crims. And I was looking at them, and the guy who I got introduced to show me, our family back from the water work from where we come from, did him a favor. He was arrested for a shooting years prior, and we looked after him in one of my auntie's homes from the police. So he kind of owed our family a favor, and he was doing this telemarketing. He was very successful at it. So I sat there and I listened to this guy, and I listened to him for a week. And at the end of the week, I listened to him make sales. I watched him not make sales for 3 days, but he was a machine.
Right.
He was like a machine gun with that phone, you know. And he never got any sales for 3 days. But after he started breaking through on the Wednesday, he just kept getting sales after sales after sales.
Wow.
And come Friday on payday, he was filling out an invoice book, and he looked over at me. He said, "Dean, how much does the Prime Minister get paid a week?" I said, "I don't know, Bill." I said, "You tell me." He said, "Well, not this much." And he showed me his invoice book, how much he's going to get, and it was over $2,000. I said, "Give me
Wow.
that phone. Pass me that phone," because they didn't work on Fridays.
Right.
And he showed me to follow the script, and that's all I did. And I was freaking, and I got it all wrong. I couldn't talk, I couldn't read, I couldn't write. I was getting angry at him, smashing the phones down. And come 5 o'clock, the boss walked into the office, and he said, "They will be there on Monday, mate." I said, "I'll be." I said, "What time does this place open?" And he said, 7:30. I said, "I'll be here at 7. I'll see you at 7:30. He said, "You keen?" I said, "Yeah, I'm keen. I'm real keen." And yeah, and I just worked my butt off, you know,
And that was
to
it.
learn this. Yeah. And I become his best telemarketer.
How long did you do that?
I did that. I was making like $2,500 a week. And
Wow.
I did that for about a year and a half, and then I went out with my brother into business ourselves.
Okay.
And that was an extremely profitable business. And my brother and I split up, and I went out on my own, and I'd bought a house in between this, and I traveled. I started traveling all over the world. Bought a house, and then he paid me out. I paid the house off. I learned about investing in property and negative gearing, and I bought more property, and I learned about finance and how it all works, and I bought more property, and I utilize equity, and yeah, within 10 years, I was worth $10 million.
Isn't that amazing? From your childhood being incarcerated for 14 years to becoming a multimillionaire. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a success story. most of us just dream to have a happy life, let alone make that kind of money.
Yeah. I worked hard, man.
Well, absolutely. And you earned it. Not
I
only did you
did.
earn it, you turned your life around. You deserved it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And now
And then
you're selling your book. Do you have a copy of your book with you so you can put up?
can I get it?
Yeah, go get it.
Can I just, okay.
Yeah. It's just phenomenal to hear his story, that his first age of incarceration was 12 years old. And then he was back in the system before he was even an adult. Then he's continues to be in the system until he's almost 27. And then he gets out, he realizes he needs to change, and he does. He puts himself through rehab. He makes the changes inside and outside, finds a job, works hard at it, discovers he's good at it, goes out on his own, later sells it, uses that money, reinvests it into properties, and becomes a multimillionaire. I mean, come on. That's the American dream. And he's in Australia. So then he goes on and writes a book in 2006 about his story.
Yeah, and that's the book.
Yes.
It's called King Hit, and that took me 12 years to write it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's had phenomenal reviews. You can find that on all the W's, kinghitbook.com, and I've been very blessed. I'm very fortunate. I'm very humble, and yeah, I'm here to tell the world my story, and I'm here to tell the world that being accountable on a very, very deep level is the way I found to really change.
I've
Not on a
never heard it
surface.
put that way before, but that's a very true statement. Absolutely. And change is possible if you really want it.
Well, I found the deeper I went, the more I discovered.
Mm-hmm.
The deeper I went within my soul, I found things that were sabotaging me. The deeper I went, I found things that stopped me from achieving goals. The deeper I went, I found answers to why I struggled. The deeper I went, I found answers to why I didn't get on with other people, or why I was critical, or why I was insecure, or why I couldn't manage certain situations, or,
Right.
I learned to feel my feelings, and
Where they
I
were so
learned.
suppressed and hidden before. You didn't even know you had any.
I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, and it's been a long process, but I haven't given up. I haven't handed this power over to other people and let people control me. Where I go, it's this person's reason why I can't do this, and it's this person's reason, or it's this circumstances I couldn't do this, or it's because of this I can't do this,
You
or
never
it's
looked at
because of
yourself.
this. Every time I got to that level of feeling scared, or feeling uncertain, or feeling inadequate, or feeling self-conscious, or feeling I didn't want to be in the situation, I just pushed through.
Right.
I just kept doing the things that I didn't want to do.
What happened with your relationship with your family once you started changing?
Well, I was telling them they needed to change. I
Mm-hmm.
was going, there's some problems here,
Yeah.
and like certain family members did change, but other family members didn't. My brother, he was a heroin addict. He changed. My mother and father, they're dead, and they didn't acknowledge that they had any responsibility for my
Of course not. Yeah,
behavior.
you did it all yourself. You did it to
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly, and I get that, and I respect that. I
Do you have
respect.
children now?
I do.
Uh-huh. Good.
Yeah, I got two beautiful children,
That's good.
and
Grandkids?
great kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Now,
no
do you have
problem.
grandkids?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All
No,
right.
not yet. Not yet. Um, but yeah, they're really good kids, and I, I I won't go into that too much because it's in the story.
Oh yeah, no. You gotta read the book, find out what's
You got to
going
read
on.
this book,
Absolutely.
man.
And it's a
It's
very nice sized book. So it's not one that's going to take you a long time to read. It's got some fascinating stories in it. Not only fascinating, but true stories about how he lived his past life, how he made the decision to change, and then how he fixed his life and became who he is today. Mhm.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's a wonderful, wonderful story. So you're retired now,
pretty much.
other than pushing your book.
Yeah, yeah. I do a lot of stuff on YouTube too,
Mhm.
and
Okay. What's your YouTube channel?
it's Dean King. I can send you the link.
Yeah, send me the link because I'm sure
Yeah,
people will ask and I want to be able to give them the information. And
yeah.
if you could give the public one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't blame anybody for your thoughts and your feelings.
Yeah,
They're
that's good.
yours.
Yes, they are yours. That's right.
Nobody owns your thoughts and feelings.
Mhm.
No government, no person, no circumstance. You have created who you are by your actions and your decisions.
Absolutely.
And the quicker you take responsibility for that, the faster you'll find your dreams.
And if they want to get in touch with you, they can find you on Facebook under,
Sure, King Hit Book,
okay,
or King Dean 08 at gmail.com,
okay.
www.kinghitbook.com. Yeah, you can find me there.
No, it's phenomenal. He was nice enough to send me a copy of his book last night and I perused it, and there's some good stuff in there. There's some really good stuff. I mean, it's real. It's not made up. It's real. You can tell it happened to him. You can tell it was his life, and he's very passionate about who he used to be and who he is now. Mhm. That says
Yeah,
a lot. That says a
I
lot.
love it,
Mhm.
and I've got a lot more to do.
Yeah,
You know, today's the first day of the rest of my life, Brenda.
that's right. And keep looking at that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. How many years have
yeah.
you been clean from heroin?
30.
30 years. So you came out clean and stayed clean that last time.
No, I didn't stay clean as complete abstinence.
Mhm.
I drank during that time. I smoked marijuana. I got into cocaine. I took amphetamines on the weekend, but I was always, and I'm not saying to people go and do that. I'm only talking
Right.
about being honest about my journey. Yeah, but because I took that responsibility for myself, I wasn't blaming anybody for that.
Right. That's good.
I,
And more people need to
I,
do that.
I was doing that because I was choosing to do that. And
Right.
I wasn't doing that because I was doing it because I had problems. I
Mhm.
was doing that because it was my choice to do that. If I
Right.
had problems, I
Absolutely.
would keep talking about the problems. And if I wanted to do that, I would still do that.
And you wouldn't have changed. You would still be
No,
doing
I'd
that.
still the
Right.
same person.
Mhm. Making
But I
excuses.
don't, no excuses. But
Mhm.
I don't take anything now. I don't even drink.
That's good.
Because it's not that I'm struggling not to do that.
You don't
I
want
don't
to.
I want to.
Right.
I can do anything I want.
That's when you know you've got real change.
Wow.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dean, for being with us. Guys, look us up. If you need to contact him, get a hold of me, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We'll see if we can get you together, hear more of a story. Maybe he can help you out if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with your actions, if you're struggling with your thoughts. Give us a call. We'll see if we can help you out. Thanks again, Dean. I appreciate it. Nice
It was
having you.
great, Brenda. And thank you. And